I'll be explaining the step-by-step process, and also I'll break down in details how I retouch portrait image like this in Photoshop. And not just that, I'll show you how I process the raw image in Capture One. And for those of you who don't have the Capture One software, I'll show you how you can process the raw image using Camera Raw. And with that being said, let's jump straight into it. So this is Capture One, and this is the raw image in Capture One. This is the raw file, and this is what I did in Capture One. I just balanced the exposure, so I'm just going to click on reset right there to reset it to default like this. Once it's on default, what I'm going to do in Capture One, I'm just trying to balance the exposure of this image to make the image look better. And this is what I'm going to do in Capture One to process this raw image. So the first thing I'm going to do, since I want to balance the exposure, in Capture One, I'll just come to my exposure tab right here, click on exposure. Then I'll come to my exposure layer right here. Looking at this image, I feel the image is looking underexposed, which means the image is looking kind of dark. So I'm going to come to my exposure and just brighten it up a little bit to just balance the exposure. So I just use 0.34 for the exposure. And another thing I'm going to do, I'll just come to my highlights and just take my highlights all the way down like this. And make sure your exposure one is turned on. And the reason why I turn on this exposure one is because it's going to warn me if my exposure is too much. So let me just show you. So if I just take my highlights all the way to 100, you can see the parts right here that are red. It means the exposure right there is too much. The highlights right there is too much. So that's the function of this exposure one. If I just turn it off, it's not going to show anymore. So you're not going to know if the highlight is too much. So make sure it's always turned on if you're using the Capture One. So I'm going to take the highlight all the way down like this. I think 48. And I'm going to open up the shadow just a little bit. Let's use it 10%. And for the whites, I'm going to open up the white. Since I took down the highlights, I'm going to open up the white and take my blacks inside just a little bit. Now let's see the before and after. So you can see this is the before and this is the after. We've balanced the exposure. Next thing I'm going to do in Capture One, I'm just going to use Capture One to make the skin tone look even. And to do that, I'll come to my color tab right here. Once I click on my color tab, I'll come to color editor. I'll click on skin tone right here. So once I click on skin tone, I'm just going to click on this picker tool right here. So once I pick on this tool right here, I'm going to click on any part of the skin which I want the rest of the skin to look like. So I think I want the rest of the skin to look like this part right here on the forehead. So I'm going to pick this tool again and just click on this part right here on the forehead. I want the rest of the skin to look like that. So once I pick that area, let me just zoom in a little bit. If I just play with the hue and saturation, it's going to affect the skin tone of this image. So you can see what's happened to the image is affecting the skin tone of the image. But I don't want that, so I'm just going to reset it and just pick from that part again. And what I'm going to do, I'll come to my uniformity and just move the hue of the uniformity to about 15%. So I'm looking at the image until I feel it's good. I'm going to stop there and move the saturation inside a little bit like this. I'll move the uniformity again. So I feel like this works for me. Let's see. So I feel 20 works for me. So let's see the before and after. So this is the before and this is the after. So I feel this image is looking good like this. So what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to open this image in Photoshop right now. But before I open this image in Photoshop, let me just show you how you can process your raw image using Camera Raw. So to process your raw image with Camera Raw, all you have to do is come to the raw file and just click and drag it inside of Photoshop like this. And it will automatically open in Camera Raw. So for my Camera Raw, what I'm going to do, let me just make it big. So for my Camera Raw, what I'm going to do, I'll do the same thing I did for my Capture One. So let's come to the exposure and just bring the exposure up a little bit like this. And I'll come to my highlight. I'll take my highlight down like this. I'll open up my shadows like this and open up my whites like this and bring down my blacks like this. Another thing I'll do with Camera Raw, I'll just come down to my calibration tab right here. For my calibration, I'll just come to my blue primary and just increase the saturation to about 80 like this. So you can see it has added that color to this image. So you can see the colors now are popping. But I feel the colors on the skin now are looking too reddish or too saturated rather. So to fix that, I'll just come to my color mixer. I'll come to the saturation of the reds. Just take the saturation of the reds down a little bit. And do the same thing for the oranges. I'll take the saturation of the oranges down a little bit. And for the yellows as well, I'll take saturation down a little bit like this. So let me just show you what we did in Camera Raw. So this is the raw file and this is the before and after. So what I'm going to do now, I can just open this image in Photoshop, start retouching it as well. So that's how I basically process my raw image in Camera Raw. So I'm just going to cancel this and go back to Capture One. So once I'm back in Capture One, I'm just going to open this image right now in Photoshop. So I'll right click on the image right here, or I'll right click on the image right here and click on Edit with Adobe Photoshop. And you can use 16-bit or 8-bit. But if you're working on an image that you want to add a lot of layers, I prefer you use 16-bit. But if you don't want to add a lot of layers to the image, just use 8-bit. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to use 8-bit and click on, just leave your settings at default and click on Edit Variants. So once the image opens Photoshop, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate my layer by pressing on Ctrl J or Command J if you're using a Mac, or you can just drag your background layer and put it on this plus icon right here to duplicate your layer. So right now we have our background and we have our background copy. If you notice, I did not crop this image in Capture One. That's because I wanted to crop it in Photoshop so I can have more space for the crop. So I'll just come to my crop tool. I click on 4:5 ratio right here, 4:5. And I'm just going to crop this image 4:5 in Photoshop like this. I want Photoshop to automatically fill those edges for me. So I'm just going to crop it 4:5 like this. And make sure your content aware is selected and click on OK. As you can see, Photoshop automatically fill those edges for me because I clicked on this content aware right here. But if I just undo that and pick my crop tool again and I try to crop this image 4:5, and this time I did not use content aware, that part right here is just going to fill with the color of the background. So if I just click on OK, Photoshop is going to fill those places with the colors of the background like that. But if you want your image to be like this, you can do it like that. But since I want Photoshop to help me fill those edges, once I pick my crop tool and I just size it the way I want, I'm just going to click on content aware so that Photoshop will automatically fill those edges for me. And after cropping my image in Photoshop, next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to zoom in and just remove the blemishes from this image right now. So if I zoom in, you can see the blemishes on the image. We don't really want that, so I'm just going to remove it. And there are different ways you can use to remove blemishes from an image in Photoshop, and I have a video explaining in details the 5 ways I used to remove blemishes. So if you want to watch that video, I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. So to remove these blemishes, I'm going to be using the focus separation method to remove blemishes for this image. And I'll just come to my Retouching Academy, just click on focus separation via gradation blur. And I'm going to use a radius of about 6.4 for this image, or 6 for this image, and click on OK. Immediately we run our focus separation action. We've successfully separated the colors and the textures in the image. And since we want to remove the blemishes is inside the textures, so we just come to the texture layer right here. So click on this first one right here, which is texture copy if I use focus separation method. So click on the texture layer and just pick your close stamp tool. Once you pick your close stamp tool, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Make sure sample current layer is selected. If you're using the focus separation method to remove your blemishes, make sure your sample is on current layer. Opacity is set to 100, mode is on normal, flow is on 100. So I'm going to sample from a close by area by pressing alternate or option if you're using a Mac to sample from a close by area and just paint over blemishes like that to remove the blemishes. So make sure you are actually taking your time to remove your blemishes for your image. Once you press alternate, you are going to see this sample icon right here. So just sample from a close by area and just paint on the blemishes to remove them. That's how you can remove blemishes for your image. And if you want to learn how to remove blemishes from your image, I already made a video for that, like I said earlier, so make sure to watch that video. So I'm just going to remove the blemishes for this image right now. Another thing I want you to know, make sure you are increasing and decreasing your brush size according to the part of the blemishes you want to remove. And to increase and decrease your brush size, make sure you're using the square bracket key on your keyboard to increase and decrease the brush size of the blemishes you are going to remove. Okay, now that we've successfully removed the blemishes from this image, so let's see the before and after. This is the before and this is the after. The before and the after. The next I'm going to do, I'm going to fix those parts of the image that are looking too bright and too dark. And to do that, I'm going to be using the micro dodge and burn to fix that. And to do that, I'm going to come to this Retouching Academy again. Click on this dodge and burn curves. Once I click on this dodge and burn curves, you can see right here we have visual aid layer and we have dodge and burn layer. This dodge and burn layer right here consists of our dodge and our burn right here. Why this visual aid layer consists of this black and white layer that you are seeing on the image right here that enables me see where to dodge and where to burn. So if I just turn this black and white layer off, the image is going to be normal with color, but I won't be able to see where to dodge and where to burn really well, except this visual aid is on. So that's why this visual aid is here, to enable you see where to dodge and where to burn. But what I usually do, inside this visual aid layer, I'm just going to add a levels adjustment layer and just move the midtones towards the highlight side like this to make the image a little bit more darker, so that I can see the dark part of the image and the bright part of the image well. So after adding this level adjustment layer, I'm going to close this group and just open the dodge and burn layer. And if my dodge and burn, I'm going to be dodging the dark parts and I'm going to burn the bright parts for this micro dodge and burn. Let me say that again. For this micro dodge and burn, I'm going to be using my dodge to brighten the dark parts, while I'm going to be using my burn to darken the bright parts, just to even out how light falls on the image to make the image look smooth. Once my dodge layer is selected, I'll pick my normal brush tool. I'll make sure I'm using a soft round brush. Make sure my mode is on normal, opacity is 100, and I'm just going to change my flow to 2% or 1% if you want, to 2%, and make sure smoothing is on 10, angle is on 0. And also, before you use your normal brush tool to do the jabon, click on your brush settings right here. Make sure your brush edge is smooth like this. If your brush head is not smooth, make sure smoothing is checked. I'm going to hide it and I'm going to brighten up those dark parts and darken up those bright parts right now. So you can see the nose right here. Let me just show you something. You can see the nose right here that are looking a bit dark. I'm just going to brighten those parts up. And also I'm going to brighten this part up a little bit, and this part right here a little bit. I'm going to brighten it. And also I'm going to brighten this part right here a little bit, this part right here a little bit. So anywhere you feel looks a little bit dark, you can just brighten them up a little bit just to even them out. So I'm going to pick my normal brush tool, take my flow back to 2%, click on enter, and just start zooming a little bit. Just paint on those parts that are looking a bit dark like that. And make sure you are increasing and decreasing your brush size according to the parts you want to work on. If you want to work on a bigger portion, make sure you use a bigger brush. If you want to work on a smaller portion, make sure you're using a smaller brush. This part that are looking too bright right here, I'm just going to come to my burn. I'm just going to burn them a little bit, just to even out those transition right there. Just going to burn them a little bit like this. Feel it's looking good. I'm going to dodge this part, and I'm going to burn this part as well a little bit. I'm going to dodge it a little bit. So let me just quickly show you the before and after what we just did so you can get an idea of what I'm trying to do. So this is the before and this is the after. The before and the after. You can see those parts right here that are looking kind of dark. They are not looking even right now. So this is before and the after. So that's what I'm basically going to do for this image right now. Now let me quickly show you the before and after what we just did. So this is the before micro dodge and burn, and this is after micro dodge and burn. You can see how the image is looking right now. This is the before and the after. So I'm just going to delete this visual aid like this. Next thing I'm going to do for this image, I'm going to use focus separation to smoothen out the skin. And to do that, I'll come to my Retouching Academy, click on focus separation via Gaussian blur again, and just use the radius of about 6 and click on OK. And the reason why I use a radius of about 6, it's because I want to retain some textures on the image. If I use a smaller blur radius like 4 or 3, the image is going to be too smooth and I don't want that. So that's why I use a radius of about 6, so that I can still have texture on the image at the same time making the image look smooth. So that being said, since I want to work on the colors right now, you know the first time when we want to remove the blemishes, we worked on the high frequency layer. Right now, since we want to work on the colors, we want to work on the low frequency layer. So just make sure your high frequency texture layer is turned off. If you're using this method, make sure it's turned off, and I'm going to get a blurry image like this. Right now, we don't have any textures on the image. We have only just the colors. Make sure this your corrective tone is selected, because that's what we want to be working on. We're going to working on this corrective tone. And the reason why I like working on this corrective tone instead of directly on the low frequency layer, if I'm working on this corrective tone, if I make any mistake, I can easily go back and just erase the mistake instead of deleting the whole frequency separation and start all over again. So that's why I like working on this corrective tone. Once my corrective tone is selected, I'll come to my toolbar, click on my mixer brush tool. Once I select my mixer brush tool, I'll make sure I'm using a soft round brush. And also I'm going to click on these brush settings and make sure the edges are smooth. And also I'll click on protect texture right here. So after that, I'm just going to close these settings. And for my mixer brush settings, make sure this place right here is selected. My weight is on 20. My load is on 30. My mix is on 26, but it doesn't really matter which mix you use because this place is on transparent. So this mix doesn't really matter. You can leave it in any number you want. But my flow is on 20. So I'm using weight 20, load 30, flow 20, and you can use any percent you want for your mix. Now to paint on this image, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm just going to be painting the highlights separately, painting the shadow separately, and you're just trying to make the edges a little bit smoother. So just increase and decrease your brush size with your scroll bracket key according to the part of the image you want to work on. Since I want to work on the highlights right here, I'm just going to increase my brush size according to that highlight right there and just paint on the highlights right there. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit like this. And for these edges right here, I'm not going to paint on the edges just to make the edges look smooth like that. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the whole of this image. I'm going to be brushing the shadows separately, and as well I'm going to be brushing the highlights separately like that. Don't brush your shadows into the highlights, and always remember to increase and decrease your brush size according to the part of the image you are working on. Let me quickly show you what we just did. You see, this is the before and this is the after. The before and the after. You can see we still have our highlights, we still have our shadows, and we still have our midtones. So I'm going to continue doing the same thing for the image just to make the image look smooth. So let me show you before and after. This is the before and this is the after. You can see we still have the textures on this image and the image is looking good. So I'm going to do the same thing for the body, not just the face. So I'm just going to hide my high texture layer, pick my mixer brush tool again, and just work on the skin. So any part of the skin, I'm going to do it for any part of the image that has skin. Now let's see our before and after the mixer brush tool. So this is the before. You can see how the skin is looking, and this is the after. Let me just zoom in so you can focus on the face and the hand a little bit, so you can see the before and the after. You can see it's looking smooth, and we still have the textures on the image. So let me just zoom in a little bit. And the reason why I really love this focus separation method is that if you see any place that has blemishes on image, you can easily come to your high texture, copy right here, pick your close stamp tool, and just remove any blemishes you feel you are still seeing on the image that you want to remove. I'm still seeing some blemishes right here, so I'm just going to remove them just like this. Let's see where we started from generally and where we are right now. This is where we started from, and this is where we are right now. Before and after. After I use my mixer brush tool to smoothen out the skin, next I'm going to do, I'm just going to apply my Imagonic filter just to make the image look a little bit smoother. You don't have to do it if you don't have the Imagonic filter, but to use it, I'll just come to my corrective tool. Once my corrective tool is selected, I'll hold Ctrl and click on the low frequency. I'm just going to merge them by pressing on Ctrl E on my keyboard to merge them, or Command E. Then come to my filter and come to Imagonic and just click on Portraiture. And you can follow my settings right here if you have this Portraiture 3, and just click on OK. And if I zoom in, let me just show you before and after of that. So you're not going to see the difference because it doesn't really make a lot of difference. So this is before portraiture and this is the after portraiture, just a subtle difference. So I feel this image is looking good like this. Now next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to retouch the eyes. So let me just show you how you can retouch the eyes to make your eyes pop. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Just come to my action. Click on my eyes and teeth whitening action, and inside this eyes and teeth whitening action, I have my vibrance, I have my photo filter, and I have my curves. If you want to learn how to create this eyes and teeth whitening action, just go down to my previous video and just watch the video. So I'm going to zoom in and just pick my normal brush tool. Make sure this layer mask is selected, and just take my flow back to 100. You know we took it down to 2% before, and I'm going to paint only on the white part of the eyes like this, just to make it look a little bit brighter. And just paint on this other part like this, just to make it look white. And I'll do the same thing for this side like this. And after that, I'll just come to my properties. Once your layer mask is selected, your property is going to show. I'm just going to feather it a little bit like this, and maybe reduce the opacity a little bit to about 71% like this. So this is before and this is after. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new empty layer. Pick my normal brush tool. Make sure flow is 100, opacity is 100, make sure foreground color is set to white, and just click on this part right here, opposite this white part of the eyes. Just click once like this, and do the same thing for here, opposite this white part of the eyes. Just click once like this. Just come to your blend mode, change your blend mode from normal to screen, and after that, just come to your filter, just come to your blur, just come to your Gaussian blur, and just blur it to the result of about, let's use 2%. 2% works, and click on OK. Now what you're going to do next, just reduce the opacity a little bit. Just reduce the opacity a little bit, like, let's say like this. Okay, like this work. And just pick your eraser tool. Just erase it from the eyes. Just leave it only on the eyes like that. Okay. Now let's see the before and after. This is the before, and this is the after. And that's what I'm going to do. I'll come to my adjustment layer, click on brightness adjustment layer, and just increase the brightness like this and just invert it by pressing on Ctrl I. Just paint only on this part of the eyes and also this catch light inside the eyes. This part right here, but don't paint on the black part of the eyes. So paint on this white part right here and this part right here like this. And now let's see the eyes. Let's see before and after. Let me just group it so you can see the eyes overall. So this is the before and this is the after. The before and the after. You can see how amazing the eyes is looking right now. The before and the after. So you can just rename this group eyes like that. And if this image has teeth, I would have done the same thing for the teeth and just paint those white parts of the eyes on the teeth as well. But this image does not have teeth and it's looking really good like this. So I'm going to leave it like this. Now next thing I'm going to do for this image, if I just zoom in, you can see the colors right here. Let me just use my normal brush to explain that. You can see the colors right here are looking kind of reddish. I don't know if you can see that, but I see those colors right there are looking reddish. So I just want to fix that. And to do that, I'll just come to my adjustment layer, come to my hue and saturation. Just take this hand tool, just click on this hand tool and click on this place right here. And it's going to show red. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the saturation all the way down and just invert it. After I invert it, pick my normal brush tool, opacity 100, flow 100, and just paint on this part that are looking kind of red like this. And the reason why I'm painting right now, I just want to make sure I get the selection right. That's why I'm painting right now. I'm just going to fix it to make it look better, but I'm going to select it like this. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to my hue and saturation and just increase the saturation a little bit like this and just play with the hue until I feel the colors are matching right there. So I feel this color right here is close to what I want. I'm going to leave it like this and just play with the brightness and see. Okay, I think I'm going to leave the brightness like this. And after that, what I'm going to do, I'll come to my layer mask. Once I click on my layer mask, I'm going to come to my feather and just feather it a little bit until I feel it's looking okay. So I feel like this is better, and I'm just going to reduce the opacity a little bit like this. So let's see the before and after. This is the before. You can see how red is looking, and this is the after. The before and the after. So that's how you can face situations like that if you have it. Now next I'm going to do, I'm just going to even out the colors of the skin, and I already have an action for that. So I'll come to my action, I'll click on color correction. And also if you want to learn how to create your own color correction action, I also have a video for that. Just go to my page and watch that video. So once I open my color correction layer right here, with my gradient selected, I'm going to click on my gradient right here on the properties. This place is the shadows, this place is the midtones, while this place right here is the highlight. And since I want to even out the colors, I'm going to click on the shadows first. I can double click and it's going to show me this picker tool right here, or this color tool right here, or I can click on this color right here and it's going to show this color as well. I'm going to click on any part I feel is the shadow for this image. So I feel right here the shadow, so I'm going to click on it and click on OK. And for the midtones, I'm going to click on the midtones and click on this place right here as midtones and sample the colors from the midtones right there. While for the highlight, I'm going to click on this place right here as the highlight. I feel this nose right here is the highlight. I'm going to click on it once to give me the highlight color and I click on OK. So right now you can see we have our shadows color, our midtones color, and our highlight color right here. So I'm going to zoom in with my layer mask selected, pick my normal brush tool, opacity 100, flow 100, and just paint on the skin of this image just to even out the colors like that. But I'm not going to paint in on the contour of the makeup. So this part right here at the contour of the makeup, let me just show you that. So this part right here at the contour from the makeup, I don't want to paint on it, I don't want to spoil it. This part right here at the contour from the makeup, so I'm going to paint on those parts. I'm also not going to paint on this contour right here from the makeup, so that I won't spoil the makeup. After that, I'm just going to paint on the rest part of the skin. Alright, now you can see the before and the after. Now if you feel, let's say you are painting and you paint into the clothes, all you can do is just switch to a black brush and just remove it from the clothes, or just use your eraser tool to erase it from the clothes like that. I'll come back to my brush tool and just paint on it like that. And after that, with the layer mask selected, just come to a feather and just feather it a little bit just to make the transition smooth. Because I don't want hard edges, so I'm going to feather it just to have soft edges like this. After that, I'll come to my blend mode and just change the blend mode from normal to color. So once I'm on color, I'm just going to reduce the opacity down. So let's say 15. Let's say 14. Let's see before and after if it works. The before and the after. The before and the after. I'm going to take it up to about 20. Let's see. The before and the after. Okay. I'm going to take it down to 15. I think 15 works for me for this image. So you can see the colors on this image right now are matching. They are looking even. So this is the before and this is the after. So that's how you can match skin tone in Photoshop. We are going to be color grading this image right now. And if you've learned anything from this video so far, make sure to give this video a like so more people can see this video and also learn from this video as well. So to color grade this image, I'll first of all add contrast to this image. So to add contrast, I'll come to my adjustment layer right here and just click on levels adjustment layer. You just move the shadow part inside like this a little bit. You can hold alternate to just move it and you are going to see if the image is peaking, and you can stop. So I'm going to stop at 8% like this. And also for the highlights, I'm going to move this highlight part inside a little bit. And the same thing, you can hold alternate and just move it inside until the image starts peaking. Then you can stop. So I feel it's okay right here. I'm going to stop right here. So you can see the before and after. We've added contrast to this image. Now I'm going to color grade this image inside of Camera Raw. So to do that, I'm going to create a stamp visible layer by pressing on Ctrl Shift Alternate E. So once I create a stamp visible layer, I'm going to come to my filter. I'm going to convert it for smart filter first. So once I click on convert for smart filter and click on OK. And the reason why I convert it to smart filter is so that if I make any adjustment to Camera Raw and I feel it's too much or I don't like it anymore, I can easily go back to Camera Raw and adjust that effect. So I'll come to my filter again and come to Camera Raw filter. First, I'll do instead of my Camera Raw filter, I'm just going to come down to calibration and just come to my blue primary and just move the saturation of the blue primary all the way up like this. As I'm moving it up, you can see the colors of this image right now, they are popping. You can see the blues or the green, they are popping right now. But I feel it's too much. I'm going to take it down to 80% like this. I think 80 works for me. So this is before and this is the after. The before and the after. So you can see just that one slide I will move. You can see how good this image is looking right now. Now, since I moved the blue primary, you can see the colors or the image right now, they're looking too saturated, but I like the blues like this. But I feel the colors like the oranges and the reds and the yellows of the skin are now looking too much, so I'm going to fix that. And to fix that, I'll come to my color mixer and just come to the saturation and just reduce the saturation of the reds a little bit, reduce saturation of the yellows as well a little bit like this. While for the oranges, I'm going to reduce it just a tiny bit to about -7 like this or -9. So it works for me like this. So you can see how good this image is looking right now from just that one slide that we did. So this is the before and this is the after. The before and the after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this preset menu right here and I'm going to see different presets. And what this preset is going to do is going to make the image look soft. So you can see how soft it's looking. So this is the original image, and if I just take it up, you can see how soft it's looking. But I feel it's too soft right now and I don't like it. I'm going to take it all the way down a little bit like this. Before and after. The before and the after. So that's all I'll do for Camera Raw, and I'll click on OK. So let's see our before Camera Raw and after Camera Raw. So these are before Camera Raw. You can see the colors are not popping, but this is after. You can see the colors right now are really matching. What I'm going to do next, I'm just going to come to my adjustment layer. I'm going to come to my vibrance and just add a little vibrance to the image, just a little bit like this. And finally, I'll come to my adjustment layer again. I'll come to my curves adjustment layer. I'm going to add a little brightness to the image. So I'll come to lighter RGB like this to add a little brightness to the image. Right now, I feel it's too much. You already know what I'm going to do next. I'm going to reduce the opacity. So I'll come to my opacity and just reduce it a little bit. Let's say 20%. 20 works for me. And before, after, before and after. So I'm liking this image like this. Finally, what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove those stray hair that you are seeing right now on the image. So I'm just going to remove them. And to remove them, I'm just going to group all these ones. Let me just group everything I did. I'm going to call this group color grading. And since I want to remove those stray hair, I'm going to create a new empty layer. Once I create a new empty layer, I'm going to pick my close stamp tool. Once I pick my close stamp tool, make sure your sample is changed to correct and below layer. So I'm going to sample from the close by area and just paint on the images which I want to remove, just to remove those stray hair. So I know I'm painting inside the image, I know, but I'm going to fix that. So just paint on the image like that, just to remove those stray hair. Alternate to sample and just paint to remove those stray hair. Alternate to sample and just paint like that, just to remove those stray hair. Alright, so if you see the before and the after, the before and the after, you can see those stray hair are no longer there, but we remove some part of the hair. So to fix those parts, just add a layer mask. So click on your layer mask like this to add the layer mask and invert the layer mask. Once I invert the layer mask, it's going to bring back those effects. Right now, just pick your normal brush tool. Make sure opacity is set to 100, flow is set to 100, and if I just paint on those hair right now, it's going to just remove those stray hair. If I just paint on it, it's just going to remove them. So just take your time, be careful, and just paint on those stray hair to remove them like that. So you can see this method is really easy and it gives the best results. Now let's see. This is the before. You can see those stray hair, and this is the after. They are no longer there. So that's how you can easily remove stray hair from your image. So let's quickly see the before and after we started from and where we are right now. So this is where we started from and this is where we are right now. Next I'm going to do for this image, I'm just going to blur the background. So to blur the background, I'm going to create a stamp visible layer again by pressing on Ctrl Shift Alternate E. I'm going to click on this object selection tool right here, or any selection tool you use, and just going to click like this and just put this around my subjects. So I feel the selection is okay like this. I really don't need a perfect selection. I'm just going to invert the selection by pressing on Ctrl Shift I to invert the selection. And once I invert the selection, right now the background is selected. I'm just going to cut out the background from this image by pressing on Ctrl J to cut out the background. So right now the background is standing alone. So right now we have our background up right here, which is standing alone, and we have our subject layer below the background. What I'm going to do next, with my subject layer selected, I'm just going to hold Ctrl and click on this first layer, which is the background layer, and bring back that selection, and just invert the selection again by pressing Ctrl Shift I to invert the selection, and this time make sure only the subject is selected and add the layer mask to the subject like this. So after adding a layer mask to the subject, I'm just going to click and drag this background layer below my subject layer. Just to name this one background for better understanding. Background, and this one above subject. So now that we have our background layer below our subject layer, any effect I do right now is not going to affect the subject, it's going to affect only the background because the background layer is selected. So to blur my background, I'm just going to come to my filter, I'll come to my blur, I'll come to my Gaussian blur or Gaussian blur, anyone. So I'm going to move the radius to about, let's say 12% or 10. Take it up, or I'm going to take it up to 30%. 30 works for me. So let's see if there's any band. Okay, 30 works for me for this image, and I'm going to click on OK. So if I just zoom in, you can see the before and after. This is the before and this is the after. It's not much different because the background of this is already smooth. So after blurring my background, the final thing I'm going to do for this image before saving it, I'm just going to add digital noise to this image. I'll come to my action and just click on noise to add digital noise to this image. If I just zoom in, you can see the noise on the image, but right now it's too much and we don't want it like this. So I'll come to my opacity and just reduce the opacity a little bit. So let's say let's use 12%. 12% works for me. This is the before and this is the after. I'm not going to sharpen this image because this image looks good already. There's no need to sharpen the image. So to save your image, just come to your file, come to your export and click on save for web legacy. And just follow my settings right here. Make sure progressive is selected, embed profile is checked, quality is 75. You can use 80 if you want. And that's my settings. I'm going to click on save and just save this image on my laptop like this. Let me just group everything and show you where we started from and where we are. So this is where we started from and what we did, the before and after, the before and after. So this is step-by-step process on how I retouch portrait image like this in Photoshop. And you can choose to follow this step if you want. Let me know what you think about this process by leaving a comment. And if you want to learn how to retouch your image using Micro Dodge Bond, click on this video right here. I'll see you guys in my next video. Stay creative.